So I'm going to go over the installation and operation of an SS3PD fill station. SS standing for space saver, 3 for the 3 fill positions, P for the pneumatic door opening, and D for dual fill pressure. In this case, the machine is 2216 and 4500. 2216 fill lines, gauges and valves marked in yellow, 4500 marked in green. So basic operation and setup, you're going to need to make a connection to the back of the fill station beside the gauge here. In this instance, we've got it just connected to one cylinder, maybe connecting to bulk cylinders or direct to compressor. Once it's in place, you're going to need to bolt it in the ground through the 4 feet, 2 holes in the front, 2 holes in the back. Ideally on a concrete floor, you're going to want to Hilti bolt it in or concrete anchor it. If possible, you're going to want to leave a little bit of room. You don't want it tight against the wall. You want to have enough room for someone to maybe get an arm in if in the future a gauge needs to be changed out or adjustments need to be made to the door operating controls or anything like that. Or at the very least, if you can only put it up tight against the wall, you're going to want to use female anchors so that you could unbolt it easily and slide it out of place. So a technician or one of your personnel can get in behind it. So basic installation is in. It's connected to an air source. You want to operate the fill station with a minimum of 3000 psi. If you guys are going to test it out, just that's the way the door controls are set. They're going to need a minimum of 3000 psi to operate kind of correctly. They won't operate perfect until you're in the 4,000 to 6,000 psi range. They'll still work, it's just they'll be maybe a little bit sluggish compared to what they are at full pressure. So door switch is here, closed for the door and open for the door. So doors open. So as we see here, we have 3 yellow fill lines, 1 for each blast tube, and 3 green fill lines for each blast tube as well. Yellow for 2216, green for 4500. Now the silver fill connectors are a safety fill connector. You cannot fill a 2216 even accidentally with these connectors. They will leak. So it's as safe as we can possibly make it for you. There is safety relief valves for each, so if you're trying to fill 2216, their safety relief valve will go off if you try and put more than 2500 psi in it. And likewise for the 4500 pound circuit, there's a safety in the back that'll vent off for pressures exceeding 5000 psi. Fill panel here. This is the fill station supply valve. Basically that shuts off all air to the fill station. You're probably going to leave it open. The only time it'll ever be used is if a technician's working in the back, he'll shut the air source off. Supply gauge, fill pressure gauge, isolation valve we'll go over later, obviously the door control, and then the 2 valves and gauges that correspond with the 2 fill whips for each fill tube, and 3. Now, so basic operation, once it's in, you've got your supply pressure. You can see that's how much air you have available to use. If the door is open, you can't fill. So if you'll watch, if I try and dial the regulator up to set the pressure, you'll see this. So fill pressure goes up, but supply pressure goes down. It's not accepting any air from storage with the door open. However, if we close the door, you get your pressure back so you can fill. So in an ideal situation, before you put bottles in, before you get started, you check your supply pressure. If we're filling 2216, we're going to dial up. I don't know if you can see with the glare and I don't get my head in the way. We're going to set the regulator for around 2250, 2300. We're going to open this isolation valve. What that does is it links in that safety we talked about earlier for 2400 psi. So we'll open that. Oh, got a line not closed here. Open the isolation valve, and that supplies air to the 3 fill spots for 2216. Then open the door. In this case, I'm just going to demo 1 cylinder because I'm filming one-handed. Install 1 cylinder. Move the fill line. If you angle the bottles a little, it makes it easier to get the connection on. Connect your bottle. Close the bleed valve. I'm not going to open the cylinder, but in real life you'd open the cylinder up. You close your door. It'll be the same if you're filling 1, 2, or 3 bottles. Once they're all connected, doors closed, bars down, you can open your fill valve. And of course it's filling very quickly because all it's doing is filling the air line. Once it's filled, or I should say there's a flow restrictor in the valve, so it's going to fill slowly so they're not too hot. You can manipulate that a little bit with the valve. If they're filling a little too hot, you don't have to open as much. If you need them quicker, if you're in a fire scene or something, you need it to be a little bit quicker, you can open it wide. It will make a little bit of difference, but not very much. So we assume that that bottle is full. We open our door. Close our cylinder valve off. We're going to bleed the pressure out of that line. Disconnect our fill line. I'm sure for those of you that have filled bottles before, this is very repetitive, but we're going to put the fill line back on its holder. Now these are just holders. You don't want to screw them down all the way. They can jam up a little bit. They're a little bit sticky because they're new, but they'll work in. You just want 2 or 3 threads on it, just so it's enough thread that it's not going to pull off and tear any threads, but it's not so much that you have to undo it all the way. So 1, 2, or 3 cylinders, 2216 is going to fill exactly the same way. So if we're filling 4500s, I'll just swap the bottle out here. Same, so our bottle's in. Connect our fill line. Close a bleed screw. Open up the bottle. Close the door. Now in this case, because we're filling 4500, what we need to do is we need to close that isolation valve off, because we need to go dial our pressure on the regulator up higher than 2400. So we're going to close this isolation valve. That takes that safety out of the link. So we're going to dial our regulator up to 4500. Now if you're only filling 2216s or 4500s, 99% of the time or 90% of the time, you can leave the regulator set. You don't need to be dialing it up and down each time. It can just stay set where it is. And then on the odd time you're filling the opposite cylinder, you could dial it down to 2216, open the isolation valve and fill, or vice versa, close the isolation valve and dial it back up to 4500. So we were filling the 4500, we've dialed the regulator up, isolation valve is closed, we go to that position, 4500 valve, open the valve. Obviously it fills the cylinder quicker than normal just because it's the hose. Cylinder stop filling. We'll shut the valve off, open our door. Shut the cylinder valve off. Open the bleed screw, bleed the pressure out of the line. You see the gauge falls on us. Pressure comes out. Disconnect the fill line. And again, this would be the same if you're filling 1, 2, or 3 cylinders. Very good with my left hand, there we go. Couple threads just to hold it in place. We'd either pull the cylinder out and carry on with our day, or add more cylinders and continue filling them. So, before you leave the door closed, when the machine's not in operation, nobody's going to catch their hip or anything on it. Very safe system. You'll have trouble filling anything incorrectly, and if you do, there are safeties in place to protect you. The unit will come with a paper manual, of course, that will explain everything that I've done here. But again, if you have any questions, you can reach us weekdays at our numbers here, or in the manual there will be my card that has my cell phone number, which I'm available evenings and on weekends. Hopefully this answered all your questions, and thank you very much.